Welcome to E39 Source. This is Ryan Schultz in my 2000 E39 M5. Today we're starting a DIY on retrofitting front park distance control. This vehicle came equipped from the factory in February of 2000 with rear park distance control only, as all 2000 model year BMWs did. In 2001, starting in the 9 of 2000, so September of 2000 production for the 2001 model year, BMW modified the park distance control option to include front sensors as well. One here, and two more on the other side. Retrofitting this isn't going to be easy. I've done a ton of homework and it looks like very few people have attempted it. So I am going to come out and just say that I don't really know 100% what I'm doing yet, and it's going to be a learning process for me in this video. I am going to try to film everything that I do, even though I may not be able to do all of the wiring. I may have a shop do some wiring if something additional is necessary to make everything work. But today my goal is to swap out the bumper carrier, that's the piece of steel behind the plastic bumper, to the one that a front PDC car would have come with. The only difference is it's got a hole here and it's got a hole here. The one in there right now is all the way solid and doesn't have the room for PDC. The back bumper is actually off the car right now as it's going into the body shop tomorrow for a week. It's having a little bit of body work done over here. There's a couple rust bubbles that need to be removed in that fender, so I had to pull the rear bumper. But if it were on there, I would still have park distance control sensors there, as that's what the car came with from factory. If you're just adding the front sensors, you're trying to do what I'm doing, should be no need to remove the rear bumper at all. If that changes, I will tell you how to do it. It's really easy. It took me 8 minutes or so. In the back, one of the components that we're going to need to change is the PDC module. It is that white module right there. You can almost read the part number on it. Note there's two connectors for vehicles that have only rear PDC. The white one on the bottom is the harness for the rear sensors. And the black one on top is data, power, probably the speaker inside the car that notifies you as you're approaching something when in reverse. In 9 of 2001, for the 2001 model year with vehicles equipped with front and rear PDC, they added a blue connector on top to control the front sensors, and that's the harness that we are going to need to run through the entire vehicle, all the way up through the firewall somehow, and to the front sensors that we'll be installing in the front bumper. This video will be going through all of the steps necessary to retrofit front PDC to a car that came with rear. If you're looking to retrofit both front and rear with original equipment components, this video may help you with some of the wiring for that. As far as the front sensor to the back, I'm not going to be able to help you with the fusing and all of the additional wiring that needs to run to the speaker, which is located under the rear deck, the beeper for the back sensor. And I'm not actually sure how the front sensor is going to beep, since it's supposed to be wired into the gong speaker that's already in the car. If you do or don't have PDC, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to try to help you guys figure this out as best as I can. My goal today, as I mentioned, is to just change out the carrier and perhaps tackle the wiring, depending on how much time and patience I have left after changing the carrier. First steps to removing the front bumper, though, it's actually fairly simple. Would be easier if you had the car lifted in the front by the front subframe and then put it on a jack stand on that point and a jack stand on that point. Of course, making sure that you are in first gear or park and your parking brake is engaged. Wouldn't be a bad idea to chock the rear wheels as well. I'm going to attempt to do it without putting it up in the air because I'm lazy. You may see that change partway through the video. First step, we need to remove the front fender liners. It's very simple. There's a pop rivet right here. You're just going to use a flat blade screwdriver and a rivet tool like that to remove the rivet. And then there are two 8mm bolts back there. Underneath, you're going to find four either Phillips head or 10 mils, I don't remember what they are, bolts that are going to hold this up into the bumper. We need to remove those. Note the passenger side has the temperature sensor as well, so be careful when lowering the fender liner that you don't damage the wiring on that. Simply take it out, unplug it, feed the wire through the fender liner and let it hang inside the car. The driver's side is the same way without the temperature sensor. 4 bolts here, 2 in the fender liner, and 1 pop rivet on the outside. Let's get those fender liners off first. So I ended up actually just using the jack. As I was working on the driver's side, I jacked up the driver's side of the car maybe 6 inches, just so I could get my hands in between the fender liner, or the fender and the wheel, to remove the two 8mm bolts that secure the top of the fender liner, which looks like this. So you can see 10 mil here, 10 mil here, 10 mil, 10 mil, 8, and then the pop rivet. So there's only 7 fasteners per side. On the passenger side, as I noted before, that's the little cubby for the ambient temperature sensor. exterior temperature sensor, so be careful with that. Now with the fender liners removed, you might want to use the jack again, maybe not. We do need to reach inside and disconnect the fog lights, so when we pull the bumper out, we don't pull the wires for the fog lights. You could remove the fog lights if you wanted to. I'm just going to reach in from here and just take the whole bulb out. Moving on now, we need to look up inside of the lip here on the M5 bumper and find this bolt. It's a Torx 50. It looks like that. Sorry for the lack of focusing. I'm using a half drive Craftsman ratchet on that. Loosen them up and remove them. You'll find that it is a pretty long bolt as it's going through the entire bumper carrier. Again, Torx 50, T50. We're going to take both of those out. I'm going to get you a part number on these bolts too. They're rusty and I'm replacing them. They're inexpensive parts. So remove those and we'll go from there. Next step is to pop your hood and then you're ready to pull. Definitely help to have two people. You're going to get a grip over here, pull out maybe an inch or two, then come out over here, pull out an inch or two. Keep doing that until it's almost all the way out. And then be careful because it is going to be very front heavy. The steel bumper carrier that we're replacing is right there. As you can see, it does not have any holes in it aside from that one there. I'm not even sure what that is, and there's another little one there, but those are not going to help us out. If you removed your fog light bulbs, you might put them back in for some safe storage, or then when you put the bumper back on, you can just reconnect up the electric to it. But moving on, the steel bumper carrier is held into the plastic bumper with a bunch of plastic clips. So we're just going to remove those. I did this DIY, the bumper replacement DIY last year, so I should be pretty familiar with this. There's going to be one here. These are the back sides. The back of one there, two, I think we go all the way over, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there are some there, 7 and 8. So there's going to be 8 plastic clips. I'll get the part number on those. They're pretty much one use only. I'm going to chuck them and use new ones. And unfortunately, I think we're going to have to pull the grill out unless I can get these out from the other side. Flip the bumper back over. Obviously, put it down on something soft without debris on it. Make sure all of your tools and screws are out of the way. These towels are freshly clean and there's nothing on them except a nice bumper now. So I'm going to get my new carrier and set to work on swapping it out. By the way, you are going to have to remove these black impact strips on the sides. The heads of these clips are behind the black impact strips on the other side. By the way, those final 4 clips that hold the bumper carrier into the bumper, you can access it by putting it upside down and kind of backwards. So we're looking at it like this. Then you'll be able to access 1, 2, 3, and 4. Once you've removed all of the old pop rivets, it's as easy as pulling it out. You do kind of need to push this lip, since it's got a gasket on it, out of the way, and then you'll be able to pull it up and remove the whole bumper carrier from the plastic bumper. Moving over to the 2 bumper carriers, we're going to do a little compare and contrast. The one that came out of the car, a rear PDC only vehicle, is this one, the first one. The second one came from, it says on it, I think it's like an 03 525. 01 525i. This vehicle had, or the 525 had all the parking sensors. So let's compare. Now you see that the one out of my M5 has the same hole that that one does, so they share that. But then look at this, big hole there for a PDC sensor and not one in mine, and that's why we're changing the carrier. So now I'm going to take the one from the 525 and just install it in my M5 bumper. Same process as it would have gone before. Also, let's note that actually that isn't the PDC hole that mine has. It's this over here. It's got a cutout there as well as here, and my bumper has neither of those. The clips that you're going to use to connect the carrier to the bumper are part number 5118174-185. You're going to need, I'd ordered about 10 of them. They're pretty fragile and you can break them if you have to push them in pretty hard like I did. So here's what we have then. Bumper carrier's in, and unfortunately not ready to put back on the car because there's a little bit of modification that we need to do here. So I put this bumper on last year, not even anticipating ever touching front PDC. So I bought the bumper that is not for PDC. It doesn't have the holes. There's a separate part number for one that has the holes pre-drilled. Although It already does have one pre-drilled. I don't know why, but I won't have to touch that. That one's there. There's supposed to be another sensor here. No, it's not this indentation. It's actually over here where we're going to need to drill a hole. Not a big deal. It's behind the plastic trim that's going to clip over that where the sensor is, so we could drill a pretty big hole and there's no chance you're going to see it. So I'm going to have to find a drill bit about an inch, inch and a quarter in diameter. We'll try to mark that up as best as we can looking from the back and holding up the new impact strip, which you will need, which has the holes in it for PDC like that. Then we'll be able to see where we need to drill the holes, and then we can move on with some wiring and bumper reinstallation. So this has probably been the hardest part so far, and I wouldn't even say it's all that bad. Couple tools I used on this. Started off using my eyes. Lined up the new pieces of trim that have the little clips, the little retainer clips for the parking sensors themselves. Line that up, make sure you have the right piece, line it up, and then really try to eyeball where you need to drill this hole. Then mark it with maybe a Sharpie or a screwdriver indentation in the plastic or something like that. Then I moved on. I didn't really skip any tools here. I just moved right up to this. This is a 1.25 inch drill bit in an electric drill. And you know, you really need to be careful here. I can't stress that enough. If you put it in there and you start jumping around, you come out here, you nick this finish. This is by the time it's painted, $800 bumper. Really don't want to screw that up. So I actually drilled from the bottom up, making sure that I wasn't going to come out like over here or something. Be very careful. Might actually be easier, in fact it probably would be easier, if you were to drill your holes before you put in the new carrier. I didn't have any trouble. I didn't hit the carrier, but we are pretty close to where the carrier is, right on the other side of the plastic. So make your big hole, maybe start with a small one, do a pilot hole and just keep boring it out until it's big enough and the trim can snap in there. Then I ended up using a Dremel with a sanding bit on it and kind of smoothed out the edges a little bit and walked it all the way over as far as I could to the bumper carrier. So I haven't snapped these things in yet. We're going to do it on camera and see if it fits. So we're going to line it up, and these things go in just as they come out, just a bunch of clips. And we're just going to push, make sure that one lines up, clip, keep pushing. And I think we're all in. Perfect. Yeah, that wasn't too bad at all. Now we're we're not clipped in there, I don't think. I'll move that down, but yeah, do the other side just like that. We're going to be good to go. Moving right along, both impact strips are installed. We now need to insert the sensors. The sensors went through a couple designs. The early sensors, as opposed to, let me zoom in on this. The early sensors, as opposed to being completely round on this part here, the top and the bottom were flat, and that's what my car has in the rear. After say 2001, maybe for the 2002 model year, they were all round like this, and I think all of the fronts were round disregarding the production date. So these are the sensors we're going to need. I'm going to put all the part numbers are down below, so please check that out before you guys start commenting. They install from the back. If you look at it for a moment, you'll see that there's a little piece that sticks out here, and that's going to fit into a groove on the back side of the trim. Give a little push and it'll snap into place. Now starts what is probably going to be the least fun process, maybe some coding and getting it to actually work, but for today it's going to be the wiring. The wiring harness is one long piece. In the E39 M5, I believe they were a little smarter in my opinion. Presuming the module is still in the trunk, they took the wiring all the way up the car to right under the passenger's headlight. They put a connector, and then the front harness plugs into that connector and then is inserted into clips in the bumper and into the sensors. Well, the E60 is a lot smarter than the E39 in a lot of ways, and that's not how it's done on this car. So here's the back of the sensors. You can get a look at that. Harness is going to plug into that. Nothing really to say. It just plugs and clicks. Then along the wire, there's a lead for that sensor, lead for that sensor. Then we're going to run it underneath that part of the carrier. Sensor number 3 and sensor number 4. Now there's no way to affix the wiring in there. I suppose you could tape it or zip tie it. There's more than enough of it. Don't worry about running out. There's a lot of lead on this. I'm hoping it's enough to get down the side of the car as well. But as far as the front bumper goes, there's plenty of wire. So I actually tucked it underneath the carrier there, and then we came back on top of the carrier under the little loop. And that's what things look like. I want to make sure that I have enough room that if I need to pull these sensors out in the future to replace one, to diagnose issues, whatever, I want to be able to have enough wire and then not lose it back there. So when we would take them out, we would just pop off this side piece of trim and enough wire would come with it. So at this point now, I'm going to start figuring out how the heck we're going to get this connector, because it's pretty beefy. That's going to need to fit all the way through the entire car and end up in the trunk. So wish me luck with that. The first step with wiring is just going to be to get it into the engine bay, and unfortunately that's harder than I expected. So what we're going to do is we're going to lift off the passenger side airbox. That can be done by popping off the 4 metal clips on all 4 sides. Then I just loosened up the band clamp on the plenum and rotated the whole thing up as opposed to taking it off completely from the mass airflow meter. Then take out your air filter and take off the lower airbox housing, which is right there and simply held on by one 10mm bolt. It's going to thread in right there. So get all that crap out of the way. Now we're going to loosen the headlight, not fully remove it. We don't need to unplug anything, but there's 4 8mm bolts that hold the headlight in. 2 on top, 2 on bottom. Move it around, you'll see the 2 on the bottom. And just move it out about 2 inches. Then, if you have some sort of a small light, LED preferably so it's bright, little flashlight like this, you're going to shine that up underneath the headlight. You're going to see a big hole that opened up, and then you're going to feed the wire through and take up as much slack as you have right now. That's going to allow us to reinstall the front bumper and get that part of the car put back together while we work on routing the wiring through the engine bay, through the firewall, through the interior, and finally into the trunk somehow. Alrighty, so we're back to this point, maybe half hour. Harder to do yourself for sure. You're gonna lift it on there, make sure it's supported, cover the ground again in case it were to slip off, it wouldn't hurt anything. And kind of line it up there on top of those 2 posts that come out. And then you're just going to work one side, get it started on the guide, that little black plastic guide on the side of the car, get the other side, and then push it back in. So you don't want to go like all the way on one side and not do the other. Work them back a couple inches at a time. Then it's the reverse process as the installation, the 4 10mm on the bottom for the fender liner, 2 8mm, and the pop rivet over here. Same deal on the other side, reconnect your fog lights and your temperature sensor. And then those 2 bolts that hold the bumper on, I replaced those. I told you I'd get you a part number 51118114679. Those T50s that live up there, those are new and tightened down. I did tighten down the headlight again with the 4 8mm bolts, put the airbox back in, clipped all that back together. And I've got the PDC wire routed up in the same clips as the rest of these wires that are going to come up into the, I believe the DME is down under this airbox. So I have it to here so far. We've got a long way to go. I'll let you know how I do it. Well, things have kind of come to a grinding halt. So the wire is still exactly where it was before. I removed this side cabin air filter box and the ductwork for it, took off the cover to the DME box, and started looking around in this bird's nest. There is a wire, a hose that feeds through the firewall back down in that corner about 8 or 10 inches down in that hole, and it looks like that wire is 100% full of wire and couldn't really take much more, let alone the connector. I was hoping I could find something I could fit the whole connector through. That's not going to be the case. We're going to have to take the connector apart. I believe there's 16 or 14 wires in here. 2x8, I guess there's 16 wires in here we're going to have to separate, remember where they go in that connector, and then push them through. And this just gets to the point where I don't have the patience or skill level or experience to do this. So when the car is in the shop, which it will be here in about 2 weeks, hopefully they will be able to finish routing the wire back through the rest of the interior and the firewall. Once I got it on the inside through the firewall, if you do get that far, I was planning on simply putting it underneath all of the door sills, not the part that says M5, that black strip there. Snake it under there, snake it under the B pillar, under the rear door trim as well. Jack's in the way. The rear seat lifts up very easily. You just grab it on the front corner and tug, that would come out. This piece comes off pretty easily, and then we'd figure out how to snake it back through here, and then we'd be at the module. That just isn't going to be something I can do. For the short term, I'm just going to wrap it up, zip tie it, and put it under the hood somewhere. I don't drive this car in the rain, so it won't get wet or damaged otherwise. Maybe I'll put it over here somewhere safe. And then when it's in the shop, I will figure out how they did it. I'll let you guys know what the plan's gonna be. Once we get it to the back, we need to plug it into an updated module, as I mentioned before. I do have an updated module, but whenever I plug it in and picture the rear sensors as being on and in place, and then go in the car and put it in reverse, I just get a solid beep, indicating that the system's been disabled due to a fault. So this is the new module. Notice it just has that blue harness in addition to the white and the black. And it just bolts right up there where the other one would be. But I'm gonna put it back together normally now, and I'll let you guys know what the shop does, what it's gonna take to get all this working. Welcome back to the PDC Retrofit DIY. This has been a pretty slow moving process. Car was in the shop for 3 or 4 days. They installed exhaust and simultaneously attempted to get the PDC working. They were unsuccessful to make the system work as of right now, but the wiring harness has been correctly routed through the car. So when I left off, I had the harness right here. You can see it is that loose wire there. I just bundled it all up here in preparation for them to do the brunt work. So they ended up removing all of this down to the DME box. They ran it in this hose, and then through the hose, through the firewall, and I actually haven't been able to find it on the interior, so they did a really clean job. I would assume, I was just planning on installing it under here. I don't know if they removed that and then sandwiched it in between the body and the carpeting, something like that, probably behind the lower B pillar, but it's really well done. They charged about $300 to run it down the whole side of the car like this, but it's behind this leather, it's behind the carpeting, I can't see it anywhere, which is great. So, comes out in the trunk, right where it's supposed to be, behind the right oddities door here, as I believe it would be called. So it comes out here, and there's plenty of it left. You don't have to worry about running out of wire. In fact, the rest of it was just zip tied and crowned back behind the carpeting. So at this point in time, I do still have the normal rear PDC only module installed in the car, so my rear sensors continue to function. The front module, we can't get that working as of now. We think they're going to have to pin a harness that's going to connect to the gong speaker in the front to notify me when the front sensors are approaching an object. It's going to go back in the shop here in about a week, but as of the update right now, the wires here, I bought a different module in hopes that a specific E39 front PDC module would help, but as of now it's not. It's giving me 2 errors. There's an open ground circuit somewhere, and the front loudspeaker is not present. So I'm going to try some coding by myself with the help of a few friends, and I will let you know, hopefully in the next clip, what it does take to get this working, because we are going to figure it out. All right, guys, it's time to get jiggy. We're going to have to do a little bit of wiring here, and I think, big thanks to Mark, I think I know what I need to do. So I was incorrect earlier when I said that the black harness is for the rear sensors, the blue harness is for the front sensors, and the white harness is the power and ground and speaker information wires. That is not true. The blue harness is indeed the front. The white harness on the bottom is going to be your rear sensor harness, and the black harness is going to be responsible for the speakers, the PDC switch in the center console, and the like. So what we actually need to do, and I had 2 friends that have full PDC on their 2002 530 and 2003 525. Thank you, Hassan. Thank you, Bobby. I had them go out to their vehicles, pull the black harness, and count the number of wires. They've got 8. I've got 5. You look at enough pinouts, and you see that I should have 8. The additional 3 wires that we're going to run, and this is going to get pretty complicated here. 2 of them need to go to the center console switch, the button panel in the front of the car, and then that 3rd wire needs to hook up our front gong speaker. So, the next couple hours I'm going to spend out here routing some wires around. I don't have all the parts I need yet, but I will soon. About a week and a day still, but I should be, hopefully, if this is the correct wiring, we'll be able to test the system and see that it works today. So we're going to need 5 pins, because we're going to have to run the wires up through the car and under some trim and into the center console. So 2 are going to plug in on the button panel there with the heated seats, and then one on the gong wire. We're going to need 5 pins to tap into this harness. We need 3 pins there and then 2 in the center console. The gong speaker has a different pin. They're these. I'm going to put the part numbers to these in the description below. The part numbers for everything I mentioned in this video will be in the description below. But we need 5 of these. They're 0.75 square millimeter wires. With that size bushing contact, again part numbers below. Then we're going to need 3 lengths of wire. I got these on Amazon for about $3 a piece. It's 18 gauge 25 foot primary wire. I don't know what primary means, but 18 gauge. I got a red, I got a black, and I got a white, so I'll be able to keep them separated. So without further ado, I'm going to start wiring, and I'll let you know what I find out. I'm going to attempt to show you how to open up the black harness, as this is going to be the first thing I'm going to try to pin. Please bear with me for the camera work. I'm doing this alone, and I'm going to do the best I can. So this is our black harness. It's kind of a 2-piece harness, and we need a very small, almost jewelry size. In fact, I am using a jewelry size flat blade screwdriver to go ahead and pop this thing open. So if you look at it, you'll see that the outer black part that has the lever on it needs to be detached from the rest of it. So right here there's a bit of a tab, and I'm trying as hard as I can to film this well. We need to kind of depress that. It's just held on with this little clip. If you insert the flat blade there and pry, then you'll be able to work the clip off, and the tripod is standing exactly where I need to be right now, but just press that tab to the side and pry out, and I'll show you in a moment what you'll get. Okay, pretty simple. Here's what we have. I just started prying it out, and then it's just going to lift off right like that. So that piece comes off easily. Now we have this. This is very well labeled. You'll have to maybe get a light and get closer to it, but pins 1 through, is it a 2x6? So pins 1 through 12 are clearly labeled. So what we need to do is tap into 2 of the pins. I think it's 7 and 10. Let me check my document here, and we're going to insert those wires I showed you a moment ago into those respective pins. So there's actually 3 pins that we need to insert into the black harness here, pins 7, 9, and 10. Pin 7 on the black harness is going to be responsible for going into pin number 8 in the center console switch. I'm going to have this whole list, just as I have it typed here, in the description of the video. So pin 7 on the black harness to pin 8 on the center console switch, pin 10 on the black connector back here to pin 9 on the center console switch, and pin 9 back here on the black PDC harness to the T4 pin on the gong speaker. So it inserts really easily. Just line it up with the way the rest of them are, and then you're going to press it in. You're going to get a nice satisfying click as pins 7, 9, and 10 seat down into their respective position. I don't know if you can see on video, right here above my left thumb it says 12, indicating that's pin number 12, and on the right that's 7. So it's really easy to see which is which. Now we just need to keep them separated and get them run to the right location. So they come with about an 18-inch lead on them. I'm going to strip the end of it down and then use a terminal connector to carry on with that wire I got from Amazon. So I'm going to hook everything up before I do run it through the car to ensure that it works and I'm not wasting my time. I don't know what my expectations are, but it's worth a shot. So the next thing we're going to do is prepare the center console switch in the same way, just inserting, I believe it's pins 8 and 9 up here. So to pop this thing out, there's a couple ways we can do it, depending on how much time you want to spend. I'm just going to get a non-marring plastic pry tool. I'm going to pop out this HVAC panel here. You insert it on the side. Don't use a screwdriver. You're going to nick up the plastic pretty badly. I'm going to insert my pry tool over here, pop it out, lift it out of the way, and let it dangle by the wires over here. Then you can reach into the hole where this was and press this panel out from the bottom, from the behind. That came out very easily. Let it dangle. And then, as I mentioned, just going to reach in there and try to do it in the center or as evenly as possible so they come together, and then pull this out. That's going to reveal a very large connector, and then on each side there's these plastic tabs. It might be hard to do with one hand, but we're going to press the plastic tabs and pull the connector out of the module. As I said, it is difficult to do with one hand, but once we get that out, we'll be able to see the pin diagrams on here, we do need to slide the black piece off, and right there you can beautifully see the clip that holds that black piece on the brown piece. So we're just going to pop up the black piece, slide it off to the right, and then we'll be inserting 2 pins into this harness. This was pretty simple. I went ahead and wired in pins 8 and 9. I'm just remembering that 8 is closer to the brown side and 9 is closer to the black side. They go in order from left to right when looking at it in this orientation. Then use some wire strippers or whatever you like to use to strip down the shielding to, I'm going to hook everything up and test it first, so I wouldn't need that much for a terminal connector, but to just twist them together to see if it all works, maybe 1/3 to 1/2 inch. So I'll do both pins 8 and 9. Then in the back, what I say, 7, 9, and 10, I think we did back here, do the same thing. Then we're going to get our wire and connect up whatever I said before, check the description, two of these to the 2 we just wired, and then we need to take apart the driver's footwell a little bit, and this is just awkward due to the small workspace down here. It's actually easiest if we start off by removing this piece of carpet trim. There is a Phillips head screw right there, so we're just going to take that screw out, and then the whole thing slides toward the trunk about 2 inches, and then that'll pop off. I'll talk to you after I get that done. Next thing is going to be hard for me to film, but on the ceiling of the footwell down here, there's a black piece of plastic trim that's held up with several Phillips head screws. They're the brass ones right there. There's 2 on the left, 3 in the middle, 4 there on the right. And then there's these 2 things in the back that we need to twist. See if I can get that on camera. Reaching in here, it's this black thing here. We're just going to twist it clockwise 90 degrees. Same thing on the other one. And once you remove those screws, this whole thing should pop out. Note that the gong speaker is right above the accelerator. It's that right there. There's going to be 2 wiring harnesses in the back, so don't rip that out and hurt your wirings. So I kind of popped it down and then flipped the trim over. This is the gong speaker, and the only wiring modification we need to do on this is to add in pin 4. And it's the unoccupied pin above the white one, below the black one, right there. So I don't actually have the adapter for that pin yet. Notice it's it's like old school BMW wiring. It's not these real thin wires. They're much larger, fatter pins. It almost looks like something as old as like the E28 or something. But I'm just gonna temporarily, to see if this all works, use a terminal connector, cut the end off it, and then just shove it down over that pin. That should make solid electrical contact. While I don't like it permanently, it will just be temporary until I get that piece. So that is pin T4 on the gong speaker. Again, the one on the right above my finger. All right, guys, we're a little messy right now. We got tools and wires and keys and trim hanging everywhere. But if we cycle on position 2, and then come down to the PDC switch, press the button, look at that. It illuminates green, and I hear this speaker down here clicking, notifying me of the front sensors being close to the wall in the garage. So if we come out here, I'm going to leave the door open so we can hopefully hear. We'll stand in front of it. It speeds up, and there's the solid beep. So we got front sensors going. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear, but let's come to the back now. And there's the back. Hell yeah. It works. And then the last thing I checked was if I turn it off at the switch, and I can't even clutch in, so we're just going to go neutral, it automatically engages. Perfect. At this point, make note of your connections. Again, everything's down below, what pins you need to connect together. The next several minutes, I would imagine, of this video are going to detail how to route the wires through the car. So, long story short, right now I just have them over here, but I'm thinking we're going to take the driver's side for the whole journey here. We have 3 wires at the module, 2 of which need to get to the center console, 1 of which needs to get to the footwell. So we're definitely going to run the red one under the carpeting in the trunk. We're going to disassemble part of the trunk, run the red one over here, back behind the carpeting. If you have split fold seats in the back of your E39, this is going to be a lot easier, and we are going to definitely employ their function, so just drop it down like that. If you don't have split fold seats, Pretty simple to remove. You're just going to lift up on this bottom cushion, get a hand under there, pull really hard, it'll pop out. Then you'll be able to look around and find all the bolts you need to remove, and the headrests need to come out, and then you can just remove the whole seat itself if you are so inclined. With the split folds, we're next going to remove this side piece of leather trim, and it may be hard on camera, but you're just going to get your fingers behind it and pull hard, which I can't do with one hand holding a camera, but that'll pop out, revealing a couple of holes that we're just going to feed those wires through. So let's start with the gong speaker. I'm going to determine if I'm going to run the center console 2 wires up the passenger side and through the glove box, or up the driver's side and through the steering column area. But we're going to start, I believe, in the trunk. Starting off, we're going to want to get a much better connection with the 3 lines we made back here. I'm just using terminal connectors, tighten them down really hard, give them a pull, see if they're going to come off, and then I tested it after this and it is still functioning. So get a good connection with that. Then we're going to start some disassembly of the trunk. These doors come off really easily. There's just these 3 typical BMW black pop rivets. Use a pry tool removal like this. Pull, pull, and pull. 3 of those will come out, and your door will come out of the car to be stored in a dry safe location. Then to remove this bottom piece, the CD changer needs to come up and out. Watch the wires, it's cut into the carpet, put that to the side. Then we're going to find 2 more, those same plastic pops. Then this will come off. We are going to remove this lower piece of trim. You can do this any way you want, but I'm going to put the wires back behind here. So you're going to find, I believe it's a 10 millimeter, could be a 12, right on top there. Sorry for the focusing. There's one there, and there's one in the same place on the other side. And then that black piece of trim will pop out. We'll run it over there through this jungle of wires here. You're going to find yet another pop rivet right here. That will let the carpet fold back. And then we're going to get through the rear firewall up into the back seat area. There are 4 more plastic pop rivets along this inside lip. Then we should be able to grab, pull, pull, watch the wires. And now we've got this piece of trim out of the way. Be careful with that. This piece of trim is about $360 new for some reason. It's all plastic, I don't know why. But from here, now we're going to take our wires, and there's already a loom here. If you feel like getting some electrical tape and putting them together, that would probably be a good idea. Along this edge, we're going to go over the bumper strut, then we'll just feed it below all of this stuff and back along the side wall of the car. And if you haven't gathered by now, I am planning on running all of the wires down the driver's side. I'm going to go ahead and actually swap the modules. It's held on with 2 of those plastic 10 millimeter nuts, just like the ones that held on the black piece of trim around here. One on the top, one on the bottom. No need to remove the bracket. And the old module without that blue 3rd connector comes out. Anybody wondering, this is a 6904023 part number module, probably the original from February of 00. So now the new module, which by the way is a 66216916406 module that has that 3rd connector, will fit in the exact same spot, although we're going to have to disconnect the top blue harness. Just there's a little indent you'll see when you do it. I'm just going to lay it in there and replace those nuts, and then we'll be done with the module. Alright guys, this is going great so far. So we got the module installed. Actually, I don't think I popped those nuts. No, I didn't put the nuts back on there yet, but I will. Do a little bit of cable management here. I have some zip ties coming in the mail by Monday through Amazon. I just took a few extra days to deliver. So I will tidy all this up a little later behind the oddments here. I did have some big zip ties that I was able to use when I put the black, white, and red wires along with this other harness. About every 6 inches I put a zip tie on there just to keep things quiet back here. Then we're going to run under our electronics. I fed each wire individually under this little tab, the bracket for all of the electronics. Then once you get this carpet loose, lift it up. There's one of these blue, I think it's for the cargo net right here. Lift it up over that so you get some more room. On the interior, I did pop this out. It stays connected via a screw at the bottom, but just pull that out, let that hang. Then we're going to take off 3 clips that are responsible for holding on this. They're just pop rivet here, pop rivet here, pop rivet here. I'm going to pull that out of the way. There's one more big black plastic pop rivet that holds the carpet on. Push that out of the way. Then we can push all 3 of our wires, see them right there in parallel, white, red, and black, along here, and then you're going to find that there's a pre-cut junction in the rear firewall right there. Pry out the insulation, pull them through. I already have my auxiliary input run through there and the antenna for my Sirius satellite radio. So a nice big hole for that. Now they're already in the interior. Here they are. So I'm going to take this opportunity to put the trunk back together. I don't like seeing the whole car a mess at once. So I'm going to put things back together back here, and then we'll proceed on with running it down the interior and up into the dashboard. Trunk's back together and I'm working on the interior now. Put the split fold back seat back up. I ended up taking off the rear cushion, as I said before. Grab on a corner, pull hard on both sides, and it'll come out. Set it somewhere safe. Then I zip tied my 3 new lines to the existing wiring harnesses. I recognize the wires as audio wires, so zip tie it there so it stays tight and out of the way of anything. This is my auxiliary input. I should actually add that to the zip tie. But then we're going to come down here. We're going to go on the bottom side of the bolt that is still holding on the side seat cushion. Bottom of that, and then this door trim, not the M5 piece, but the door sill strip. If you get some fingers under there and pull up really firmly, it'll come up. It's bolted on, so swivel it out of the way, don't break that clip off. Then we're just going to run our lines under this trim with my other line for the auxiliary input. Then we're going to peel back the lower B pillar with our fingers, shove it up there, obviously feed the wire through the car on the right side of the seat belt. Now we're ready to put this back together, and we'll successfully have it up to the driver's seat. Back seats put back together. You're just going to line that piece of trim up, align the 2 plastic clips with their holes, and give it a whack. It looks perfect. Can't even tell that I've run 3 more wires through there. The front, I did the same thing. You're going to be moving the seat back and forth till you can get your hands in there in the right way. But this piece of trim is going to pop off just like the other one did. There's 3 white plastic clips in the middle, and then the 2 sides pull straight up. It'll pop out. Then I actually pulled the carpeting back in towards the center of the car, wedge my 3 new wires in between the carpeting and the body painted metal, then snap that trim back in there. So I have all 3 wires right to the hood latch right now. I'm going to try to get a work light in here so you guys can see better as I work. I still have the ceiling for this down. At this point, we can trim our red wire quite a bit if you have that much left. I'm going to leave probably 2 or 3 feet more than I need, just in case I need to get creative under here. But we're now at what is, in my opinion, or my best guess, going to be the least fun part of routing the wire, and that's going to be from getting it from down here in the pedal well into the center console. There is virtually no room to do that. I remember trying to do it with the auxiliary, and it's a big pain, so wish me luck. So we've got a bit of a mess. I went ahead and removed the lower dash, which made it a lot easier to get the wires up into the ceiling of the pedal box, as we'll call it. I just simply put it under this door trim, this weather stripping. You just peel it back, stuff the wires under there. If you wanted to go through the trouble of removing the dummy pedal and the hood latch, you could do that. I've done it before. The parts are pretty fragile, and it's kind of a pain in the butt, so I didn't do that, and they'll stay plenty hidden behind the trim. To remove the lower dash, it's also kind of a pain, but there are a total of maybe 4 or 5 screws. When you pop the trim off, it's just held in with pressure fit clips. This trim, note the M5 has the button for the tire pressure monitoring system, so watch that wiring harness right here. Pop those out. There's going to be 2 screws here. One is brass, one is black. There's 2 more over here. They're both brass colored. And then over here, you're going to pop off a little cover, and then beneath the cover that just covers up the screw is another black Phillips. So loosen that up. Then you're going to have to pull and twist a little bit. It kind of sandwiches between up in that piece of dashboard. Pull that down, and now you should have enough room to route your wires up here. I zip tied it to another harness. Over here, I zip tied it to this piece of metal. Zip tied it to another harness over here. Then ran it in where the navigation was. That just pops out with 4 screws. Then zip tied it to a big piece of tubular frame material. So I've kind of connected this up just to give it another test down before I put everything back together. I'm going to connect up the T4 pin on my red wire for the speaker, turn the key, and we'll see what happens. One of the last things we need to wire in here is the front speaker, which uses the gong speaker, as we've mentioned throughout the video. This is the little ceiling to the pedal box on the driver's side. And this is the back of the gong speaker. We talked about pin T4 before. I now have the correct parts. This is going to be your wiring lead. It does not come with the original part that I expected it would. This is the housing that is going to clip into the T4 pin, so it's a nice solid connection. The part number on this, just so it's easier to find than in the description, 61131378460. That's going to be the housing. And then the electrical contact with the wiring lead on it is 61130007571. And this part cost a total of $3.82. This one here was about the same, so about $6 more in connectors. We are going to have to assemble this. This will simply pop into the back side of the housing for the T4 pin. It's got this little blue thing on it that you can see there. That simply pushes out, then we're going to push our pin in and then snap the blue thing down to keep it into place. So then it'll only fit in one of these. We'll snap it in there, splice it into our other wire by simply stripping and then using terminal connectors and crimping it. Put that back together and we're going to be done. This is going to be hard to film, but this is the final product. I just pushed the pin in there, slid the blue thing back over. I'm going to try to prop it up here and zoom in on that. And we've essentially made our own BMW connector with the harness and then the wiring lead, which I actually trimmed down quite a bit. I stripped the end of it. This is a lot thicker than the wires I was using before, so I just cut away maybe a third of the copper. There's no need for it to be that thick of a gauge. So now we'll simply line up. You'll see when you do it, the little tick on that, the little tick on that, we'll give it a push, and there it is. There's the final T4 connection, nice and snug, perfect electrical contact, and then that just needs to be secured with the terminal connector to the wire coming from the PDC module in the trunk that we ran up to the pedal box. So we've got most of the interior back together. I still do have the ceiling of the footwell here hanging. Just made the connection with the T4 and plugged in the other two pre-existing lines. So all of that should be good. There's the crimp on the wire that we ran up from the trunk. It's really tight. So I'm going to test everything before I reinstall that panel. I've also checked the PDC module for any errors that it's reporting, and there are none. So probably need to close the door so the gong shuts up. We'll do that. We'll press the button. Yep, and that's the signal from the front wire. Perfect. We can put it all together and we're finally done. Alright guys, we're all done. Put the interior back together, gave it another test, and we're all set. So that was a pretty long process. From the time I first saw the M5 board member had it for sale to the time it's done has been now about 3 months or so. So a lot of research, a lot of time. As far as I'm concerned, it works just as well as a 2003 car would that came with these factory. So as I press the button here, you'll notice that will illuminate. We're going to hear a couple beeps from the rear sensors first, and then the fronts take over. We need position 2. So there's the rear. It's still bonging. We need to wait for that to disappear, and then the PDC takes priority. And that's coming from the front. So the system, it will not play both the rear and the front sound simultaneously. It'll play whichever one is stronger. Right now the car is closer to the front wall than it is the back wall. But if I come stand back here, notice the rears take over. I hope you can hear that. The rears take over, and then I stand back. Now the front's closer. Move back in. Now the rears are closer. And I believe that's the way it's designed to work. When you engage reverse, say you just got in the car, you haven't touched the button at all, you throw it in reverse, it activates the PDC. Alright guys, that's going to be it. It was a long video. I hope it was semi-easy for you to follow. It was pretty complicated, definitely a learning experience for me. If you have questions, you know what, the first thing I'm going to say is go back and rewatch that part of the video. I will probably get hundreds of questions. This is an hour-long video, and 6 months from now I will not remember everything I did in deep detail. Rewatch that section of the video to start with. If it's something totally unrelated to what I've done, For example, you're retrofitting rear to a vehicle that didn't come with any, I'm not going to be able to help you with that. I didn't do that and I don't know how to do that. I'm sorry. If you have questions doing what I have done and I didn't explain it well, or there isn't a part in the video about it, that's what I am more than happy to help you about. So leave a comment, send me an email, ryan@e39source.com. Thanks for watching, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you in a future video. Bye-bye.